Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first From Lab to Market of the autumn 2021. My name is Ilja Riekki. I'm representing Aalto Ventures program, and today in From Lab to Market event we have a theme around artificial intelligence, and this event is organized together with Aalto University and Aalto Ventures program, Finnish Center for Artificial Intelligence, Aalto Startup Center, Innovation Services, and VTT Launchpad, supported by Helsinki Think Company. So today we will have 3 speakers, after which we will have a Q&A based on the questions you have asked. There is on the right-hand side of your remote window, there is this chat, but also this section called Q&A over there. If you have any questions relevant for the whole speaker gang, feel free to post your question over there. If you have some personal question to some of the speakers, all of the speakers have told that they have a bit of time after this event to stay in the networking area for your personal questions. If you have any question for the audience or something you would need, feel free to also reach out that, hey, I'm doing research in this and this kind of topic, I would need help in this and that, or you are a startup founder and you're looking for team members, or whatever is your need. Feel free to reach out in the general chat. So after the presentations, there will be a panel, and after panel there will be we will be moving to the kind of conference area where there will be a possibility for free networking, but also a possibility to ask more questions from the participants. But without further ado, let's go to 3 of our amazing speakers today. We will have Xiao, Assistant Professor Communications and Networking from Aalto University, Marko Laakso, partner from Value Motive, and Jonas Paalasmaa, Director of Engineering at Volt. So without further ado, let's get you on the stage.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you all online. Actually, I have a couple of slides. Let's see if I'm able to put it here. So it will.
Yes.
Okay.
We can see it.
Okay, great. Yeah. So thanks for the introduction, and also thanks Aalto Venture Program for inviting me here. And I'm currently assistant professor at Aalto University. And since about maybe 7-8 years ago, I started to ask myself actually 3 questions every now and then. What are the 3 questions? The first is, should I become an entrepreneur? The second is, am I competent? And the third one is, when is the best time to become an entrepreneur? I must say that I don't always have good answers to these questions, and my answers have been changing all the time, depending my own personal situation, the market environment, and many other factors. And nowadays, I feel more comfortable to position myself as an academic researcher with entrepreneurial thinking. So I spend quite many of my working hours on initiating or preparing the commercialization of research ideas, but I'm not necessarily the one who actually lead the startup to the next phase. With this position, I think I could have some stories to share with you today, more from university researchers' perspective. And hopefully our discussion today could also help some of you, especially the ones who still stay in the university, to find their own answers. So to start, I would like to briefly tell my own background. So I got my doctoral degree in computer science back in 2012. And my doctoral dissertation was about energy efficient mobile computing. More specifically, it was about the power management for smartphones. And after that, I spent 1 year as a postdoc at Carnegie Mellon University. There, I started to work on edge computing, or in general, mobile cloud computing. And I moved back to Finland in 2013 because I got this 3-year postdoc grant from Academy of Finland. So I decided to stay a bit longer time in the academic world, just to to test and to see whether I can maybe go further in that academic career. But actually, I was not so sure at that time, because we know that there are always very few academic positions, like faculty positions, and also that was the point I started to think that what would be the other options. And one option obviously is going to industry and to work as a researcher or software engineer, or maybe some other positions. And that might be the least risky decision at that moment, because it's more stable, maybe even with higher salary. And then the other option is to become an entrepreneur. And at least at that point, I had no idea what an entrepreneur really need to do and how to become that. But I just got an idea that that could be, one option. And I started to work on the technology called image-based indoor mapping and positioning with one doctoral student. And I will tell more about that story. And we worked on that for a couple of years. And then in 2016, my personal situation changed because I got a faculty position in Aalto. So I became assistant professor in June 2016. And actually at the same time, we got the funding from DEGES. So actually nowadays it's called Business Finland. So we got the funding to prepare the commercialization of our indoor mapping and positioning solution. So while I started my professorship, I also started my first tutor project, or it should be called a research to business project. And by the way, so if you are not familiar with this, so this kind of tutor or R2P project in Finland is not a typical research project, because it is designed for preparing the commercialization. So in practice, it means that it's not for basic research, and at least 14% of the funding should be spent on business development. And that is the first tutor project I was involved. And I was working with 2 other doctoral students. And actually those students, they graduated also in 2017. So we decided to found VimAI, so one company together at that time. So I will tell more story about the VimAI later. Meanwhile, I continued my job as an assistant professor. Many of you know that usually when people imagine the professor's life, okay, we run a lot of research projects, we train doctoral students, we teach courses, we make publications. But besides that, I was thinking that what should I do as a professor? What should I do as a researcher? So what kind of research I want to do? And then I feel that I'm actually super interested in solving some real life problems. So maybe I'm not the best researcher for doing basic research, but for doing applied research, I feel I like, and actually I probably are quite good at observing the daily life and trying to find the problems from there and to build a team and to work on that. And that's why actually I created and actually lead 2 other this R2B projects in recent years. So last year we finished one this project, which is actually related to AI-based assembly and maintenance assistance. So basically, it's about how AI is applied to solve some computer vision problems, and how could the technology help to automate the knowledge transfer in manufacturing industry. And we were planning also to found a startup to commercialize the solution, but unfortunately, when the COVID starts, then the whole program, a whole plan has been on hold. And I wish that in the future we might find investors, or we might resume that plan. And currently I'm working on my third tutorial project, and that's about a personalized virtual stroke rehabilitation. So it is mainly about how to combine AI, virtual reality, and the wearable sensing technologies together, that we can provide such solution that it could allow the patients to do the self-training. So they could train more, and they can rehabilitate better. So that's still an ongoing project. And maybe at this point, someone might already start to think that, how can this person be changing the topics all the time? If you think I started to work on energy efficient computing, to mobile computing, to mobile cloud computing, and then to computer vision, to AI, to wearable sensing, where it sounds like many different techniques. But I feel that that is also something I like about my job, that I have freedom to choose, and why I want to change the topic. It's mainly because at different time or different phase, I got interested in solving different real life problems, and those problems happen to require different technologies to solve them. So then I got motivated to learn new technologies, and of course to work with people with different backgrounds to solve problems. And I feel that is also something I would consider that as like entrepreneurial thinking as an academic researcher. Okay, so now I will go to start telling a bit more about my story of this, or the journey of the VimAI. So VimAI currently is positioned as the, let's say, solution provider for indoor augmented reality technologies. But actually, if we now look back, how was the first idea came? So actually, we got the first idea from the daily life, just because I'm this kind of person that I'm not very good at the reading maps, but I like going to the shopping malls, and I quite often got lost, especially in some big malls. And also when I go to the supermarket, sometimes I had to spend a long time just searching for one ingredient for my dinner. So then I started to think that, is there really any technology, or is there any technology available for solving these problems? And that was in 2013 when that idea came to my mind. And then I started to make a survey on the existing techniques. And basically, we also did some tests. And then we came to the conclusion that, hey, actually, there is need for some new technology or for better technologies. For example, how can you create and update this indoor map? So it's not just manually draw the floor plan, or manually say where each rooms are. You might tell more about where each product is located. So this kind of thing. And you can also tell not just like where you are, but also which direction you are facing. So we think, hey, actually we need some new technology, and we started to work on that. So we started to work on these technologies, and we choose to go for this computer vision based solution in 2013, and actually in 2014 we got the first prototype. And after that, we just keep, let's say, improving the system in different ways. So for example, we try to add new features, we try to improve the accuracy, to reduce the processing latency. So those were done already quite much during this, let's say, the tutorial project, or even before the tutorial project was started, let's say, in the university. And then when we move to the startup phase, actually more focus has been placed on solving some practical issues. For example, how would you collect data? You ask the people who don't know any technology to collect data. How do you guarantee that they collect the data that you need? And how to make sure that the system actually works perfectly in different kinds of environments. So there are many of these kind of practical issues that we we learned and actually tried to solve actually during the startup phase through many piloting projects like that. And of course, the technologies keeps developing, not just within VimAI, but also in general in the market. Also, we have many competitors there. So the technologies have been developing all the time, and we have also been moving more from the positioning itself more to the augmented reality enabling technology like that. So you can see that the technology is developing, and I want to just mention here that actually in this process, we had managed to make publications as well. So many researchers were thinking like, okay, if I start doing this kind of project, am I still able to publish? At least according to my experience, if you are able to solve the real life problems using a better method or in a completely different way, why not publish that? And I don't think, then obviously there is scientific novelty as well. And for the business development, I must say I'm not a business developer, so probably I don't have that much to say. But what I have learned, of course, is that when we start a project, we focus more on the product navigation in supermarket. But later on, of course, we learn that the technology can be actually used in different way, can be applied in other fields, like in manufacturing. It's not just for positioning, it might be for AR or mixed reality. So that's all. But I'm sure that many startups could share the similar stories. So at the end, just a summary, like what I think I have learned from at least this case is like quite often the good scientific problem does not necessarily lead to the good business idea. For example, we started with the idea of the crowdsourcing. How do you collect data through crowdsourcing? But in reality, it might be quite difficult to implement. If you want to collect such visual data. And also the market is changing. Your competitor might be moving very fast, that you might have to also change your technology development direction. And if you are a researcher, and you know that we always need to deal with peer reviews, and we often feel like frustrated when we try to respond to the peer reviewers. But I must say that it's much more difficult to deal with customers than those peer reviewers. And I think also as a researcher, we know how to create new technical solutions, but it might not be very easy, at least at the beginning, to know how to learn to listen to business developers and how to work with them. But that is actually very important, or even the most important things for the entrepreneurship perspective. And the last thing I want to say is that just don't be afraid of failures. If you are interested, just try it. And we know that maybe out of 100 startups, only a couple of them will succeed, but who knows, you might be one of them. Yeah, but I think that's all I could share now. And if you have questions, feel free to ask, and then I'll be happy to answer them or to discuss more later.
Awesome.
Yeah,
thank
hopefully
you.
I don't spend too much time.
No, thank you. Yeah. This is really good. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
So if this speech woke up questions, there is a chat and a Q&A on the right side where you can post your questions to, and you will be after the panel as well, staying for a few minutes for your discussion. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. See you later.
Then next, let's get Marko Laakso from Valua Motive on stage. Marko can tell his story and journey.
Thank you. It's great to see that many persons around. So I was also asked to tell my story on how I switched from the academia and research to the private sector. So maybe we can start from these early years of research and studies. I used to work as an IT consultant throughout my master studies, and then later, I studied in this master's program of bioinformatics in the Helsinki University. And then I took half a year study leave for my master's thesis and joined SAMSA's lab right from the beginning when SAMSA came back from the MIT and established his a new research group to Meilahti for the systems biology. Then I joined that and started to work on my master's thesis in collaboration with Lauri Aaltonen's cancer research group. That was really interesting work. We did many genome-wide studies there, and then I graduated and returned back to my IT work. But quite soon after that, I thought maybe this research was so much more interesting. I really liked that, so that I returned back to the university and started my postgraduate studies there in SAMSA's lab. And what we did there was mainly cancer research, oncology studies, and because it was systems biology, the data sets, they were huge. Even from one individual patient, you sometimes got a terabyte of data, and then you can imagine if you have hundreds or thousands of patients, that's quite a bit of data. Actually, that's the first place where I saw a folder with more than a petabyte of data. so those data sets were absolutely enormous. They were also heterogeneous. There were time series, there were clinical data, and there were histological slides from microscopes, and you had heaps of knowledge databases, not to mention the literature and so forth. And I was really interested in this data integration and the interpretation of the observations. So can you automatize that? How to tackle those computational problems and challenges? So we started this lab-wide project called Underreal to automatize the whole research pipeline and the process. And we hired a master student, Christian Ovaska, for this purpose, and it was really funny in the sense that he was applying to a research group of the Faculty of Medicine, and in the job interview he mentioned that he is really interested in computer compilers, and he's now applying for a position on cancer research. But then it was only a couple of months after he joined our group that he actually created a compiler for a domain-specific language in order to control this workflow engine. So essentially with this Underreal, you can combine programs so that the outputs of one program are the inputs for the subsequent steps. And so you can automatize everything from the raw measurements and to those knowledge base integrations to the actual publication. So we were able to render even the documents in the end. So even the supplement documents of the scientific articles were rendered using this same pipeline. And of course, this automatization, it had a huge impact on our productivity. And we soon got many requests for the collaborations and services and help for these. So the other groups and teams were also curious on how to do similar data analysis. But in the core of a research group is of course not to do such services and to provide so much services, but to do the actual research. So we thought that a company would be a better approach for this. So together with 12 members of the SAMSA's lab, we founded this company called Significa Research, mainly to facilitate this demand on these data analysis things. And Sirkku and I, we were the first ones graduating from this research group, so we started the driving of the company. Sirkku became the CEO, and I was working with her. And first we started in a single room in the Meilahti campus, but that was quite lonely, and so we thought that we needed better facilities and some people around us. So we joined this Aalto Startup Center, and that's clearly something these startup ecosystems or centers is something I highly recommend. Then you get more people around you. You get good connections. They also provided education and collaboration opportunities. So that helped us a lot. I highly recommend such services for startups. Most of the business was coming and the revenue was coming still from this life science domain. So many customers were either healthcare providers or research groups. But we also worked actively on with companies doing social media and marketing analytics. And many of the algorithms are the same, and they were readily applicable on those domains as well. And since our expertise was in this data analysis, but on the private sector you need complete solutions, we worked in a tight collaboration with ValueMotive, and ValueMotive provided those software solutions around these analytics. So they are experts on data management and UI development and building applications around these ideas. It was almost immediately after we established the company that we were contacted by EU consortia applying for EU funding on the 7th framework program. One of the original participants wasn't able to join the team, and then they needed a new partner, and they contacted us if we were interested in, and certainly we were, and we joined this Modicel project for the targeted modulation of immune system responses in cell therapies. That was a really nice program for us because it provided an opportunity for us to develop further these data analysis pipelines that we had started on our own already. An interesting aspect of this funding was that most of the funding was intended for the exchange of people across these institutions. So we got many visitors from those foreign participants, and also we got an opportunity to visit the different institutions abroad. But of course, in order to facilitate those or to get those visitors, we needed more office space and better offices on our own. At the beginning, there was just Sirkku and I, but we had to scale up for those visitors. Later on, we established yet another company that was in collaboration with Sirkku's family company, LKJ-palvelut, and we established a new company for the temporary traffic arrangements. And at that point, I became a partner of ValueMotive, and ValueMotive was one of the founders of this new company. So we focused more on the software development, and I joined the ValueMotive at that stage. So what is ValueMotive then? I already mentioned that it's a software company. We provide or create custom software for our customers, and we help them to improve and in this digitalization. We also have continuous services for the whole life cycle of these programs, of this software. So we take care that they are always up and running and up to date for the current demands. And of course, it's no wonder nowadays that lots of data processing is involved in these projects, because nowadays it's not just that there are human end users for a system, but the systems have become active actors themselves. So there's quite a bit of knowledge and intelligence built into these systems. One especially important domain for us is B2B sales intelligence. B2B mainly for the reason that we do fairly advanced analytics, and that's much easier on the business domain rather than using personal information. But working on that, and also that's really natural for us because there are heaps of natural language resources on that domain, on the customer interface, and we have quite a bit of our own technologies related to the processing of natural language resources. One example of that is this Varis. That's our own product that we've developed for these needs. So it enables the use of normal texts, just as in English or Finnish articles, using normal standard data analysis algorithms, and you can combine those data sources with your other machine learning things. What is extracts the semantics of documents. It's capable of telling what the documents are describing, what they tell to you, and you can make generalizations. You can really see the forest out of trees with these technologies. So, as was said, we have these discussions after these introductions. So I'm looking forward for fruitful discussions with all of you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Amazing. I think there's one really good question already in the chat, which we can then ask from all the participants. This was to Marco, but I think this is relevant for a lot of the other participants as well. Thank you, Marco, for sharing your story. There's still space for more questions. So audience, if you have any questions bothering you related to AI, related to entrepreneurship, related to starting a company, related to doing research, feel free to post it here in the chat or in a Q&A. In a Q&A, there's a function to vote as well. So next, let's get on stage Jonas Paalasmaa, nowadays working at Wolt. Jonas can tell more what he has been doing before working at Wolt. Thanks for being with us today, Jonas.
All right. Hello, and thanks a lot for the invite. So I'm Jonas Paalasmaa. I'm a director of engineering at Wolt. So we have many groups of teams at Wolt, and operations is one of those. So it has these operational teams that are actually making sure that the purchases are delivered appropriately. Then we have like finance group and merchant group and consumer group and things like this. But I'm working on the operation side, which is actually quite has some scientific links, because how to run that operation in an efficient way is quite a big challenge. And I'm also a PhD from computer science from University of Helsinki about how many years ago? Already 7 years ago. So that's also one of the reasons why I'm talking here. And that's my email address. So first name.lastname@wolt.com if you have any questions. All right. So the timeline of my career is one of the things to discuss. So this is my timeline as a like software engineering and science person. So I actually started in Nokia in the like was it 2001 or 2 as a summer intern, and actually landed like a full-time job at Nokia Research Center, perhaps in 2004. So there I was developing all kinds of fun apps in a data-driven applications team. So we, for example, Nokia album and some other kind of apps that were ahead of their time. So you can find many of the features these days in an iPhone, but at the time it was a little difficult to get those apps distribute it, and so on. And Nokia's style at the time, I don't know if it's the same even today, was a lot of patents. So I did 10 or tens of different patents on various topics. So it was this kind of a good old corporate research setup where I was working at. And then when I was at the right age, so kind of I think I first joined Nokia full time, and then university. So I went to Aalto. It was this TKK back then. So I don't know what Helsinki University of Technology. That sounds the English translation. So I went there in, I think it was 2004 to do a computer science degree. So basically, it was working full time, but also doing the computer science studies there. And actually, this whole, let's say, on the left you see the studies, and on the right you see the work. So I was practically working full time the whole time. So the university thing was this kind of part-time thing I tried to advance at the same time. So Nokia Research Center is where I got into these algorithms and that kind of programming. So I actually did some, just before leaving, we did some kind of strange brain EEG measurements there. I'm not sure where they were related and why we were doing those, but anyway, that's where I actually got really interested in like algorithms and Python machine learning methods. I think that was in 2006 and 2007. And then some friends founded a sensor startup called Finsor, and I joined it in the very beginning as an algorithm developer. So we were doing, let's say, sensor productization in the beginning. So there was a sensor patent, and then we tried to build products around that. But it soon turned into kind of sleep measurement company. So in about 2010 or 2011, I'm not actually sure about the year. We kind of started to fully focus on like consumer sleep tracking. So basically having a sensor in the bed that you don't need to have any wearable attachments to, and then providing the like health information to the consumer. And that's actually where the scientificness kind of became deeper of my work. So in the beginning it was kind of an early stage company and very also a new field. So kind of what is sleep measurement anyway? It's like a field that's not yet mainstream even today. So then we wanted to have as much credibility as possible for us as a company, and then the kind of measurement modality also. And I think in 2008 I already had some publication. It was some machine learning conference in Helsinki. I did a four-page article there on parts of the algorithm. So the idea was that we were patenting some things and then publishing some things. So getting like a nice like portfolio of like evidence and credibility. And then we were iterating the product, the sleep consumer product. On the right in the image, you can see the latest version. I think that's from 2018, which is the latest embedded version ever. So it became like quite a polished consumer product. At Volt, I was not sorry at Embedded. I was first the algorithm developer, and then maybe 2015 or so became the CTO. So was like interested in the bigger picture more. And then we simply were developing the product with very let's say on one hand a scientific approach, so we were actually trying to measure real things rather than have some kind of bogus measurements, and at the same time like honing the product market fit, so it actually is useful for the person. And then, for example, it was sold in Apple stores at some point, and was quite nice response or reception for the product. And then in 2017, Apple acquired Bedit, and then me and some of the team members joined Apple's health technologies team in California, and worked on some stuff there. Then during the Bedit time, we did these articles. You can probably find, if you Google my name in Google Scholar or something like that, you can find all of those. So in 2008 we already had one article, and then in 2010 I started like a PhD project with Hannu Toivonen from University of Helsinki, and Markku Partinen, who is a well-known sleep researcher. So that was very in line what we were doing at the company. So it was easier to do like clinical validations and like get more credibility, and also this kind of scientific progress on the side. And then after the sleep and Apple phase, then I returned to Finland in 2019. So my family had like a decent dose of California, and it was time to return back. And then I joined Wolt as a logistics team lead, and then moved from that position to the current engineering director role, which is a little more broad than a team lead. And also in that position, it's been very scientific in a way. So, for example, the logistics area is very data science heavy and scientific, in that it's very difficult to find just the optimal routing solution for the deliveries that we are doing. So the kind of same topic has been continuing for about soon 20 years at these different places. All right, I have no idea how much I have time left, but probably still some time ago. So, like, of course, the big question here is that, like, why? So I didn't do it the correct way. So first be in the university, and then go into entrepreneurship, but the other way around. So that's obviously a good question. Does it make any sense to start the PhD process? But in this case, like I explained, it was kind of very sensible thing, and a great fit both for the university and for myself and for the company. So Hannu Toivonen was from the University of Helsinki side and from computer science, and then Markku Partinen as the kind of sleep clinic chief. So that was kind of it made a lot of sense at the time, and having some publications already when starting made it quite fast to actually graduate. Great. Yeah. So this is just a like favorite topic of mine that I have been like working with for over roughly 10 years. So we had also other than myself like PhDs in Bedit and PhDs in, well, obviously Nokia. That was a PhD heavy place. Then also at Bedit. Then obviously Apple and also at Wolt. So kind of it's a very relevant like background for a data science position. And this is just something that I have kind of keep, let's say, facing when hiring people. So I'm an engineering director and hire tens of people every year. So I'm kind of working with this topic a lot. So it's an interesting situation with like recent graduates from, for example, computer science, is that there's a very good fit usually, but then there are certain this kind of aspects, for example, deployment, so how to actually run a model in production, for example, rather than just like use it locally and create a scientific validation of it. And then the other clear thing is the like modern software product teams, which are working in a certain way that's very different from, for example, the academic context. So these are just some of the things that might be useful for some of you people, because there's kind of great potential, but then also some of these things that may be a little more tricky in convincing the employers. All right, I think that's about it from my side.
Great, thank you so much, Jonas. The last tip was very, very tangible and useful. I guess it's a chicken or an egg problem, that which one comes first, the basic skills or the work life skills. And if no one hires because you don't have enough of them, and then you don't have
exactly,
no one hires you. Hey, let's get the other speakers. Thank you, Jonas. Let's get the other speakers on stage as well for some questions from the audience. Your audience, you're still feel free to post questions and vote questions on the Q&A. There is few, but there is still an opportunity to get your questions answered. So a question from the audience was, what are the typical biggest challenges you have faced when deploying AI solutions in real life, meaning business context? So what are the typical biggest challenges you have faced when deploying AI solutions in real life?
At least two things comes to mind. First of all, as we've worked a lot on this biomedical domain, the regulations are really strict. So it's not just that you have a good idea and you build something on top of that, but you have to be really careful to follow all the processes and protocols and validations and document all those things. So the regulation process is huge. For example, in this Modicel project, we had a clinical trial, the second phase trial on real patients. And during this 4 years project, we wrote 1 meter of documents. So you can imagine how many thousands of pages and how many full-time employees were required just to document everything throughout the trials. So that's one aspect. The other thing is exactly what Jonas mentioned in the end of his talk, to get the people for the job. So at the moment we are in a stage or on the era that many of the machine learning algorithms and technologies are already available, but then you need the people to do the work. And there's a huge demand for cloud experts and developers with sufficient data science skills. Yeah.
What about you?
Me, right? Yeah. So maybe I can mention something, because we have also done many even research projects with the traditional industry, like AI projects. So we are not working maybe so much with IT companies, but with like manufacturers, construction companies like that. And the question we always get is like, okay, you need to train your neural network, for example, for something. How much data do you need? And then this is a question nobody can actually answer. How many? We can say as much as you can, but then you get the data. That is maybe not what you need, because it's not like some data you can directly get maybe from the IT system. Quite often they need to create the data, especially like images and video. And they give you the data and you say, oh, sorry, maybe you need to take data in a different way. but how should I take the data? I mean, how should we film it? Again, there is no scientific answer for that. And that is what we have seen, like really the big challenges when we start working like in that kind of, especially computer vision related AI problems. Yeah.
Okay. I guess for comment to Marco and Jonas, if there's anything from the university side we can do to get the talent meet with your requirements, I'm all ears. So
yeah,
as a follow-up.
Looking for all of you.
Yeah. So also the like, for example, like you have job ads on some company's website. Sometimes there are these like hidden requirements that are not known by the candidate.
Yeah.
So basically, kind of let's say, well, there were a few hints. So for example, like showing evidence or being, let's say, compelling in somehow being able to take the things into production. So for example, if the work has been let's say kind of just building the models, let's say validating some model or algorithm, then having done something on, let's say, I don't know, Kubernetes, having run it in Kubernetes, or having used a modern let's say machine learning model deployment framework. Yeah, things like this. So kind of it's maybe the kind of knowing what are these kind of hidden like things that companies prefer is big part of it.
Okay.
One suggestion here, it would be great if the companies would offer like summer internship also for our doctoral students, because actually many doctoral students are, I mean, the same question just Jonas, they said, oh, we want to know a bit more like how to work in the industry and some other skill. But I think some summer intern should just like in US, for example. I think that will be really perfect for the students.
That's
here.
really good. We've had it for many years. So we've hired about 6 like developer interns per year or so, and it's been a great success. This year we also hired data science interns. So for example, people that are like doctoral students or kind of profiles like that. So that's certainly great thing to do. I can recommend it.
Okay, great idea. I think that's something we can, as a university, try to facilitate as well. Moving a bit or staying a bit with talent attraction or skills gaps. So what skills researchers or someone working in the academia should develop in order to be attractive for industry or being ready to start a company? I guess that's what the question means. So
they're probably completely different things.
Yeah, but like, what would be the key skills you could imagine with your experience working in research that like probably these are what you need?
Yeah, so I can answer the like founding things. So something that might be useful is kind of mentally quit as a researcher. So if you are working on a startup, it's usually the kind of time scales are short, and the kind of finding product market fit needs to happen very fast. So in a way, kind of taking some distance to kind of the kind of researcher self, because in research it's great to have like papers and things like this, where the way of working is certain, whereas in the startup it's very kind of let's say ruthless. Kind of you need to ship or otherwise kind of will run out of money. So and that's at least like from personal perspective related to like overthinking. Is that for example the let's say way to think and approach problems may be very different in the, let's say, in the company and startup context and then in the kind of research side.
Okay. What about Marco? What would you say?
I agree with all those points Jonas already mentioned, but it's also good to think about your immaterial rights, how to protect them. You may have different strategies, but it's good to have some. you may act so quickly that you don't have to bother on those, or you protect the patent them, but there has to be some kind of strategy, and how you also, if you apply funding, how you protect your own ownership, so that you don't dilute yourself out from the company. So it's good to think those parts carefully, and also I think some sales skills are required from early on. So either you have to get them yourself, or it's good to hire them or get them from somewhere else.
Great tips. You, anything from your experience?
Well, it's more like maybe based on my observation. I have several doctoral students who kind of moved to the startup world, and I think one thing is that usually the researcher tend to think that my research is, so excellent, and you can apply my technologies for many things. You can create this, that, many things. But then at the end, for the company, you need to focus on maybe one product, or to turn it into the product. But for researcher, they keep thinking that, hey, I have this technology, why don't you use this one? This is so cool, but this is maybe not something the market needs. And they often be struggling or fighting with the business developers, like in finding out what should be the product to develop.
Okay, focus on one thing at a time and develop a product. That's a really good take. Then there is a AI-related question, which is probably relevant for all of you, but I don't even understand the question, but probably you will. For machine learning, data is critical. Have you found difficulties in getting good, well-labeled data?
So yes, that was a challenge, for example, in the embedded times, for sure. So kind of the like when to have enough courage to invest, for example, in enough data. So kind of if you're too early, then the data set is wrong, and then you somehow kind of it wasn't quite the right experimental setup that you were pursuing in data collection. Then if you're kind of just waiting many years without jumping on it, then you kind of waste time. So really quite tricky in some fields.
I think I can comment on that. Actually, this is related to my previous comment. So I think nowadays, even many companies, they might have a lot of data, but they are not labeled. And we are still lacking this autonomous labeling technology. So a lot of manual work is there. And just as Jonas said, when you invest in data, it's not just like, okay, collect the data, how to label that or clean the data, that costs a lot. And then regarding the so-called good data, how do you define this good? Sometimes it's actually even quite hard to really define this.
Marco, any comments on this?
Yes, there are many examples of that demand, and for example, on this natural language processing, you need fairly large data sets to cover all the possible domains that people may discuss about, and the validation of different algorithms, it would be nice to have. So yes, of course, that's always a compromise between the investments and the available data and the solutions. But I wouldn't say that projects are often it would be a showstopper. It's something that can be evolved and worked on.
Okay, cool. Then there's a question related to investments. So Wolt has already raised a lot of venture capital. How about others? Have you found availability of capital to be a problem? You can answer it with this question, or you can answer it more widely, like working with investors. Have you been working? What has been your key take-ons working with investors? Marco, you may start, for example.
Yes, of course, the amount of cash is often the limiting factor. And now in the value motive, we've been doing our own research and development mainly based on the own incomes. So we are self-funded at the moment. But for example, on the Significo, that was really the initial funding that we had, and then those external fundings that was really limiting our scope.
Okay, so for me, actually, personally, I have not in contact with the private investors, maybe more experience with the public funding. But for example, if I take this VimAI as an example, there is a couple of this, let's say, moments that the shareholders were discussing whether we should go and ask for investment. But actually, at the end, the company has all the time been survived with own sales. So we have not really seriously in any really funding rounds. Yeah. So I don't have more comment to say there.
But if you have been already surviving with your own sales, I think that's a very positive sign for investors, what I understand from investors' perspective. So maybe you should start talking with them.
Yeah.
Anything to add over here, Jonas, from Berit direction?
Yeah, or I don't know, maybe just in general. So like let's say the general wisdom on how to get funding for startups. So a great team, a great cap table, so sensible ownership situation, enough kind of stake with the founders. This kind of very basics, I think, just apply here as well. So nothing that wise to say, maybe.
Yeah. Then there was one question related to Jonas's experience in Silicon Valley, where we probably could learn. So what were the differences in the company operations when you were working in California compared with Finland?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a quite broad question. Or like California is very very special place, like San Francisco Bay Area, for like software people, for example. So it's like a huge accumulation of people there. So it's quite like in a way revolves around this like entrepreneurship, because you have all the like half of the world's growth companies are there.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of like extremely vibrant place. Whereas then in Finland, it's like easy to take kids to kindergarten and think this kind of basics, clean air and free university.
But company operations, environment-wise, it's very different. Company operations-wise, is it different?
Yeah, but that's also there's huge variability there. So some of these like Google places like this, they are quite like comfortable. And then when you go to, for example, to a small startup, then it can be very different. So I don't know if there's any. Depends so much on the company. There's so much variability there.
Okay. Then there's one. Let's take one more question. What problems one encounters on road to scale in an AI startup? Marko, do you think that you have some hunch on scaling?
I don't know. What could I say on that? At least one major step that we've seen is the internalization, especially when some of our products are related to this natural language processing. So, and the data sources also, the regulations may differ from country to country. So if you go to foreign markets, there may be different kind of regulations that shall be taken into account, and also the language differences. So you may have to adapt new languages and things like that. So that's something that we faced, at least.
Okay, Jonas, do you have any take on this?
Yeah, I mostly have like experience in product companies. So kind of the product companies where then there's some kind of like data science component behind it. So it's more about the like finding the product market fit, and then the kind of basics of product startups work. So
yeah, manufacturing, logistics, and stuff.
yes, yeah, well, and software company very different from hardware company and things like this. So
yeah. Okay, then there's few questions related to doctoral students working in companies or joint supervision of PhD students and so forth. I will let these questions to be discussed in the latter part of the event when we move to the conference table. So please go and meet with these company representatives or with you related to kind of academia and how to get these kind of projects ongoing. So have personal quick tips from the professionals. But thank you for you, for Jonas, for Marco, for being here today.